We will have the keynote address by Ms. Purity Wanjiru, our guest speaker for the day, director at Accurex Consultants. Then after that, we will have a question and answer session. And after the question and answer session, we will have the closing remarks from Dr. Murithi Ndegwa. Members, kindly type in any suggestions you might have in terms of topics that you'd like to be covered in future webinars by typing into the chat box, and also share your questions in relation to the presentation by tapping into the chat box. Welcome, members. At this point, I will let Dr. Murithi Ndegwa give us his opening remarks and also give us the introduction of the speaker. Karibu Edie.
Thank you very much, Brian. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to this webinar. As Brian has introduced it, we are happy to have Purity Wanjiru coming to share with us employee retention, best practices, and benefits. But just before we start off with the discussion, let me just make a few remarks. From our perspective, we feel that the world is experiencing a very interesting phenomenon. We understand that, especially in the West, with the entry of COVID-19, millions of people left employment in a move that raised concerns among employers. However, here in Kenya or even in Africa, the unemployment rate only rose higher as many companies and businesses closed shop, with many unable to pay staff salaries, as well as keeping them healthy and motivated. So today's discussion will look at employee retention. And the question we believe that will be put forward is, how can employers make it more attractive for our valued employees to continue working? In our considered view, we believe that this can be done through many things or many aspects, but just to mention three of them. One is that we believe, or in our considered view, we think that management can invest in ongoing collaborations within the team. And we also believe that when employees share ideas and skills, they feel better connected to one another, and therefore they are more engaged and they contribute more. Two, investment in mentorship programs. We also do believe that new hires need others to hold their hands and work with them so as to increase their confidence in the job and the overall job satisfaction. Three, we also believe that internal communication structure is also an important part, and it plays a major role in terms of keeping employees on the same page. And this has actually become more evident with the pandemic, when many people are working remotely or out of the office. Now, we believe that this goes hand in hand with continual feedback. Whether positive or negative, feedback needs to be shared as it helps a person note the areas they need to invest in to grow, and also the areas, obviously, where they have the strengths. We end our brief intro with a quote from Jim Rohn, who is an American entrepreneur, and he says, and I quote, "Employees need to hear a story that resonates with them at personal level, a story that is unique, genuine, and compelling," end of quote. So today we are gathered to listen to a discourse by our speaker of the day, Ms. Purity Wanjiru, who is a director at Accurex Consultants, as Brian has said. But just before we bring her on board, we have some highlights of KIM activities. First and foremost, we have the KIM membership renewal. Our request is that if you have not paid your renewal for this year, 2022, please go right ahead and do so, and you can interact with us on the chat, or alternatively, send your payment request through paybill number 896600, and your account number becomes your membership number. Alternatively, you can contact us through the telephone number 0712-200-969, or you can send an email to membership@kim.ac.ke. All these details will be posted on the chat. Again, also at Kimson, we have 14 branches spread all over the country. And for those of you who may be having relatives or even children who start for KCSE or who are sitting for KCSE, we have diploma and certification courses which are very well recognized and reputed in the market, and would urge you to please share information with them so that they can register in the diploma or certification programs. And this is not just the KCSE graduates, it's also open to people who are already working, and even people who are in the university who want to professionalize their courses, or even people who are in the working environment and want to get a diploma that is relevant to their work experience and to their basic career projections. We also have a number of programs coming in the training and conferences unit. One program that we can talk about right now is advanced supervisory skills, which is coming from 25th to 29th of April. We also have defensive driving skills, again, also from 25th to 29th of April. We also have a program on proposal writing skills from 25th to 29th of April. And these are just 3. Otherwise, if you check through our training calendar, we have a huge array of training programs that we have that cater for the entire spectrum of the market. For more information, ladies and gentlemen, please contact us on 077-3359278. I read 077-3359278, or you can email training@kim.ac.ke. For more details about Kim products, please also feel free to interact with our chat box or on the website on www.kim.ac.ke. All these details will be posted on the chat. Without further ado, allow me now to introduce our speaker. If Brian, you could kindly post the details, the bio for the speaker. Okay, are we there? Please expand it a little bit. All right, yeah, that's good. Perfect, that's very nice. Okay, let's scroll up a little bit. Scroll up. Oh, okay. Yeah, so we have our speaker, and I'll just share with you a brief about her bio. Purity is a director at Accurex, which is a HR consultancy firm with over 8 years of experience in human resource management, change management, turnaround strategy, employee engagement, training, and development. As the change management champion, being responsible for leading, directing, coordinating, and providing visibility into the organization's change management efforts. She loves the impact she has on people, especially employees, and how she is able to translate and achieve business goals through people. Headhunting, training, team building, coaching, mentoring, performance management, compensation, benefits, counseling, are just but a few skills she has perfected over time in the HR space. Purity has experience working for telcos, energy, startups, hospitality, security tech, and venture capital industries in the EMEA regions. And Purity holds an MBA in Global Social Sustainability Enterprise from USIU, a degree and a postgraduate diploma in human resources. Brian, please scroll down. Are you there? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Purity. As usual, if all is well, you give us the thumbs up. If there's a challenge, give us the thumbs down or post the details on the chat, and we'll endeavor to sort it out. Again, also, we kindly request as she goes on to give the discourse, please post your questions on the chat box. And at the end of the discourse, Brian will read out some of the questions, requesting Purity to take up and to answer. So without further ado, it's now my pleasure to invite Purity to give us a discourse on the subject of today. Purity, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Muredi, and thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I was listening to it and I almost thought it was not me you were talking about, but that is very nice. As you've heard, my name is Purity Wanjiru. Thank you so much to Brian and the entire Kim fraternity for being able to invite me to discuss this topic. I know it's quite an intense topic, and as Muredi was saying, in the wake of COVID-19, a lot has been happening in the employee space. Some organizations are getting leaner and leaner, and what we call in HR, we want people who can be able to multitask, or people who are specialized or are skilled in different ways. So in the effort of retaining the best talent in our organizations, and also even making the difficult decision of letting some of the employees go, then employee retention becomes a very critical topic for us this afternoon. So good afternoon once again, and let me know if I'm too fast or too slow, and then we can just pick this conversation. I'll try to keep you as engaged as I can. I've prepared the keynote for about 1 hour, so just bear with me as we proceed. So I've divided this whole segment into two major parts. One part where we'll be discussing the best practices. Then the other part we'll be discussing about the benefits. So let's start off. So I want to ask a question. This is a rhetorical question. You don't need to really answer. But in your own different organizations, have you heard about employee retention? Or in your position, in the many positions you hold in your organization, is employee retention one of a key conversation that you're currently holding in that organization? Or do you see a talent that is, when they come to you and they tell you, I wish to resign, then the entire organization almost goes to a panic attack. So having that in mind, so join me as we go through this particular presentation. So we'll start with a few statistics. These statistics are brought from a world perspective, and the best, what other organizations or how other companies in the world are viewing this topic of employee retention. So the very first statistic is employees who undergo effective onboarding process reduce new hire retention by 82%. And this is such a huge percentage because that will mean if you don't onboard your employees the right way, then somehow you're bound to lose them in their tenure or when they're working for you. So then the question is, do you have an onboarding process in your various organizations? So then the next part, yes. Companies that provide option for remote working have 25% lower employee turnover. And I think remote working became very, very popular sometime in 2020, because at one point you're told we need to keep distance. If your office capacity is of about 50 people, then you're told we need to reduce by 50%. Then you're wondering, where would the 25 other employees work from? So you see, then the issue of remote working came in place. But I know some employers will fight me on this because especially the manufacturing industry or the hospitality industry, they're like, we cannot work without people. So then this begs the question, which organization is the right one, or is the most fit to have part of the employees work from home, or part of the, or have a certain schedule that will allow more employees to work from home. But as you can see, if your organization is able to provide the remote working option, then your employee turnover reduces drastically by almost 25%. So the next statistics I had prepared is for 79% will decline a job offer for inaction against unethical behavior. And today I see a lot of organizations are very cautious around ethics, and work ethics is also a big topic in the industry today, because we're wondering, where do we base our businesses on, or where do we base our organizations on? So, and I also know a lot of companies have put effort towards like coming up with whistleblowing policies where employees or stakeholders or partners are able to report any unethical behavior practiced in these organizations. But you see, if there's a rumor or there's a notion that your organization does not react to unethical behavior, then you have a 75% chance a new employee is not, you will not be able to onboard a new employee. Then the next one is 77% of companies focus on employee experience to increase employee retention. And employee experience is anything to make employees comfortable in our own organizations. It could be from their benefits, their compensation, how they interact with each other. So the better employee experience you have in your different organizations, then you also stand a higher chance of being able to retain these employees. Then the next one is, at 31%, employees whose manager consistently acknowledges them for good work can reduce turnover up to 31%. So this question comes back to us as managers. How good are we at acknowledging efforts that our employees are making? How good are we at showing them a thumbs up? Or how good are we at acknowledging the efforts that they are able to bring into our own organization? If you are able to do that as a manager, then you increase, you reduce your turnover rate up to by 31%. So for example, if 10 people were meant to resign or to leave the organization because of lack of acknowledgement, then if you acknowledge, then almost 31% of them are not able to leave. Then the next one, which is the sixth statistic, 35% of workers say they will quit if they do not get a raise. I know salaries is a whole conversation going on, especially now in Kenya, because life is almost becoming unbearable. The cost of living is shooting by the day. And as employees, and I believe it's quite natural for us to always want the next bigger paycheck, the next higher pay rise. So employees who feel like they're not able to get that raise as fast as they wish or they want, then there's a 35% for them leaving that particular organization. Then the next one, this is on the cost of hiring. An average employee exit cost between 16 to 13%. And this is true because look at the cost of hiring, especially if you're not able to hire internally. If you get to a situation where you either have to get a consultant to hire for you, or you have to get into a situation where you have to either post a job online. It could be on LinkedIn. In Kenya, we have Brighter Monday. We have our own job portal here at Accurex. So if you see all these costs of hiring, then it becomes very expensive if you're not able to retain the best talent. And the cost of hiring also goes to the cost of training, because once we onboard this employee, then we are asking ourselves, how fast are they able to catch up with our own organizational culture? How fast are they able to get on hold with the work that we have employed them to do? So either way you look at it, losing a very good talent could turn out to be very, very expensive to your own organization. Then the eighth one is human resource leaders admit employee burnout is sabotaging workforce retention and is responsible for 50% of the turnover. And I think we saw a lot of this in the wake of COVID-19, where we are now working from home. So there's less structure in terms of working, because if before March of 2020, I'll assume it was a normal 8 to 5 job. By 8, you're in the office. By 5, you're out of the office, you're beating traffic. But now you're stuck in the house. So you can even start your day as early as 7 or at 6, at 5 a.m. Then in the evening, there's no that time crunch that tells you it's time to go home because you have to beat traffic. So you feel like you're working 18 hours, 16 hours in a day, which is promoting a lot of burnout within the workforce. So the higher the burnout, the higher the rate of the turnover you are about to experience in your organization. So, and I think this remote working conversation has its own benefits and its own challenges, because on one end, you're able to work at the comfort of your home or the comfort of wherever you're based. You can travel when you're working. But on the downside is there's no one monitoring how much time you're putting into your work, which is now coming up to the burnout. Then number 9, which is the second last, 8 in 10 employees will seek a new job after one bad day. And as I was researching for this topic, I found this quite interesting because I actually I had not thought about it before, that if one employee has a bad day, then they're on the next job board looking for another job. But look at it, most of the employees who leave our organizations, a lot of times are disgruntled. They're not happy either with their fellow colleagues, or they're not happy with management, or something is not right with them. And if you could trace back to the root cause, then you'll find out maybe they had one terrible day and they were like, I can't do this anymore in this organization. So they start looking elsewhere. Then the last statistic is 70% will leave a company for better development and learning. And I think this, we are seeing a lot of it with our millennials. They're coming in, they're not able to stick to a job because they're out looking for the next big challenge, you know, and they're wondering, what can I do? I come, I learn the job quite fast. Then you're like, what else can I do? And if the organization is not in a position to help them explore, then the option they have is to leave. So as I discuss more into our conversation this afternoon, we'll see ways to be able to integrate all these statistics, or to integrate all these elements that I've introduced you to our topic this afternoon, and see how best are we able to practice in our organizations. So we'll start. I've labeled the first part of this keynote on two sides of the same coin, because on one end, we want to retain our best talents, and on the other end, the employees want to leave. So you're like, if as much as I want them to remain, on the other end, if they feel that some of their needs are not met, then they would want to leave. So we'll start with an introduction of what is employee retention. So employee retention are strategies or even processes that organizations put in place to be able to keep their best talent and mitigate the risk of turnover. And whenever we talk about best talent, it could be the most experienced person you have in your organization. It could be someone who knows the organization very well, someone who knows the operations of the organization. Is the person, if we have a new employee, you are the person who you send them to, like, go, this one will teach you how we work here. So that's the definition for employee retention. So as we proceed with our conversation, we'll see what are the best strategies, and also what are some of the processes you are able to keep in place in your organization. So this is where the two sides are coming in. On one end, it's retention. On the other end is turnover. So, and both of them are a leading workforce management challenge. I think a lot of organizations are facing, and more so HR, because the HR are the people who have the initiative or are pushing the agenda to retain people and not really promote the issue of turnover. So, and you'll see when we are in the business of doing all this, there's a lot of costs that is involved, especially we get to lose very good talent in organizations. And also there's a risk of we compromise on our growth or on our profit strategy for the organization. So let's proceed and see. So a very good employee retention program, and I hope many of us have a retention program in our organizations, and just to make sure we have strategies to keep these people in our organizations. And if we feel like someone is not the best fit for organization, then we are in a position to release them and let them go. So it's quite, the employee retention program looks at it, how do we attract, because we also want the best to come into organizations. And once we have them in organization, then how well are we able to retain them and avoid losing them in the process. So according to SHRM is a Society of Human Resource Management. It's a global society where HR members are able to prescribe. They did a survey in 2019, and this is part of the report the report is titled Employee Job Satisfaction and Engagement. The doors of opportunities are open research report. So under this report, what they found out 5 things which we call job satisfiers, or what will make an employee want to remain in your organization. So one of them is respectful treatment of all employees at all levels, which is quite important. Like and also when I was researching for this topic, I saw we hire adults first before we hire employees. So how we treat these employees as adults really matter. And come to think about it, when we talk about we hire adults, we're also we're hiring that these employees want respect being accorded to them in their organizations. Then 2, compensation and pay. This one I had already mentioned. It's a huge conversation today going on in our different organizations because everyone wants the next best job or with a better pay, better benefits. And also, so compensation is becoming a huge topic in our organizations. So the other part, which is a motivator, the third one, is trust between employees and senior management. And you'll see many of these organizations, there is almost like lack of trust going on between employees and management. So how are we able to promote this trust such that the employees will want to stay, but also management will trust these employees also want to stay. So it's a whole conversation going on, but we'll see more of it as we proceed with this discussion. Then the next one is job security. And I think post-COVID-19, almost everyone, including myself, I felt like my job is under threat, because like in HR, our business is people. And once these same people are getting fired left, right, and center, then you're like, what will be my place in the HR space? And you can imagine, for me, it's from a business owner perspective. What happens when it's an employee? How threatened or how secure do they feel their jobs are? So the more secure they feel they are at their jobs, then the higher chances that you're able to retain these same employees. And lastly, the opportunities to use their skills and abilities at work. And you'll see one major dissatisfier is when you hire an employee and you're not able to use them 100%. So that one becomes quite a dissatisfier because they're like, I'm skilled at this. I went to uni or I went to college like Kim. I invested my time, I invested my money was put in to learn this particular course, but I'm not able to practice it at work. So for one of the organizations I consult for, I remember telling them, then you need to do like a skills matrix. Just list down across your entire organization, what are you good at, or what are you able to do for this organization that we did not employ you to do. That way, when employees are able to come out and say, I'm good at this, I wish to be doing or get more involved in this particular department or this particular job, then the chances of satisfaction increases drastically. So we'll look at that as we continue. So from my previous slide, we've really talked about employee retention and the strategies that will, or factors that will make the employees want to remain in the organization. So let's look at the other side of the coin, which is the employee turnover. And employee turnover, we'll start with the definition. And the definition is employee turnover is the measure of the number of employees who leave an organization during a specific period of time. So you can decide, it's for you to decide whether you want to measure it per month or you want to measure it per year. But you need to find out like how many employees am I losing in any particular year or any particular month. Then by measuring the rate of the turnover, then you can decide, is it too high or too low? I know the recommended turnover rate today is about 10%. So 10% could be in every 100 employees. If you lose 10 in a year, that's okay. If you lose more than 10, then there's a problem in that organization. But we'll see some of the factors that will ideally make the employees want to leave the organization. Then, so this leaving organization business is, on one point, it could be voluntary. It's the employee's decision for them to leave. On the other end, it could be involuntary, where it's the company or it's the employer that has initiated that separation. So, and voluntary turnover is any instances where the employee chooses to leave at their own will. Nothing, they're not disgruntled. They could be disgruntled, maybe you don't know, but it's their own initiative, or it's them that has initiated this separation process. So, and there are so many reasons why this can happen. One of them is either they have gotten a better job opportunity in another organization, or it could be conflicts also within the organization, or they no longer feel engaged in that organization. They just come, work, and go home. And among many other reasons that could trigger the voluntary turnover. Then there's the involuntary one. And I see this a lot, especially for poor performers in our organizations. Like you'll want to separate with them. So this one, the employee normally does not have a say in the separation process. They could be aware of it sometime. In other instances, they could not be aware of the separation that is impending for them. But this is where the employer's choice or decision to separate with this particular employee. So it could be due to poor performance, as I've said, it could be toxic behavior, it could be gross misconduct as well. So all this could promote the employee turnover. So I wish, I don't know if we know how to calculate the turnover. Yes, let me get a blackboard. Brian, let me know if you can see the white screen.
At the moment, I can't see it, but once it comes up, I will let you know.
All right, awesome. Okay, let me just calculate it from a corner. So when we want to calculate the employee turnover rate, that is how it could be abbreviated. So you take the number of employees who have left that particular organization during the specific period. You can decide, do you want to measure per month or per annum or quarterly or biannually, whichever method, whichever timeline you decide you want to measure using. Then you say how many employees left, so the number of employees who left, over the total number of employees you have in the organization. So this is normally presented as a percentage. So for example, if you had 8 employees who left the organization, 8 over 100 times 100. So you'll find your turnover rate for that particular year will be 8%. So that's how the turnover rate is. is calculated. So, and I think, especially if you're making reports for either management or the board, you need to justify or to put a number to the turnover. You cannot just say we have a high employee turnover rate. Then you're asked, what is the high employee turnover rate? So you need to be able to translate it into numbers. So next, I'll proceed. Okay. So sorry, I think I've messed up my window. Let me just see how I can remove it. Yes, awesome. So what, still on the conversation of two sides of the coin. So why would some of employees want to leave? So these are some of the major key factors that will make employees want to leave the organization. One is more money. And a friend of mine keeps saying money is never enough. So even if I give you a salary raise of 10K, you'll go spread it out within your expenses. Then tomorrow you'll be like, I still need a salary raise. Then we give you another extra 10K, it's still not more than enough. So more money is one major reason why we see a high turnover rate in our organizations. Two is time off, especially if you have other obligations. It could be children, or you want some time to go back to school. So time off is, and especially now with after COVID-19 and the remote working, I think it gave a lot of us a lot of flexibility. Like we can just work from anywhere in the world, but you're still being able to attend to your duties. So when this flexibility lacks, then employees tend to want to leave. Then the next one is better benefits. And benefits could be a lot of things, you know, from medical to transport allowance. Today there's a whole circus crisis in this country around fuel. So I'm even wondering, when you request for fuel allowance, you'll take a whole day looking for the same fuel. Then there's the promotion possibility. If you've stuck in a job for quite a long time, you're not able to see any promotion in sight, then employees would want to tend to leave because of that. And then the last one is prospect of a more supportive boss. I have a quote right after this, so I'll post that point first until I share with you that quote. Then on the other hand, why would organizations want employees to stay? Because we've seen why employees would want to leave. Then we want to see on this other end, why would employees want to stay? One is the cost of replacement. And I think this one we had discussed it when I was just starting, that the cost of replacing an employee is way too high. And this cost of, we saw it's anything between 13% to about to 17%. So you can imagine if you pay an employee a salary of 100,000, replacing that employee might cost you 200,000, because there's the cost of recruitment, which is 100% for many organizations that are doing recruitment. So you've already paid almost like a 1 month in advance. Maybe you want to buy out this employee from the organizations they're coming from. So there's the cost of buyout. There's maybe this employee needs to relocate from where they're currently based to where the job is based. So there's the cost of relocation and all those. So by the end of the day, you might find out you lost an employee. And also bear in mind, today hiring, if the employee that has left was being paid 50,000, for example, the probability of getting the same employee, a similar employee to be paid 50,000 is almost coming down to nil. You'll either pay them 60,000 or 70,000 or even 100,000. So if you look at the grand scheme of hiring, the total cost to company, CTC, would end up being quite high, because either the decision of retaining this employee was not made right or had not been thought through, like how much will it cost us either to hire a new employee in terms of salary, what will the recruitment process also cost us as a company, and all that. Then remember there's the cost of training a new employee, because this employee, as much as they could come from the same industry or the same background as the organization, but you still need to train them. Either they know your systems, your processes, your procedures, all those happening in your organization. So you by the end of the day, if cumulatively you look at it, it's quite expensive for an organization to replace even one single employee. It doesn't matter what level they are. You could say they're just an entry-level employee, let us replace them. But you might find out maybe you are jumping from the frying pan into the fire. Then the next one is the company culture. And I know a lot of organizations have really invested a lot in terms of training or developing a culture that's very unique and very specific to their organization. So once we lose one employee, you almost feel an imbalance in terms of culture, because once you hire a new employee, you don't know the kind of culture they will bring to your organization, whether good or bad. So because of that uncertainty in terms of culture, employees will want to retain these employees. Then time it takes for the employee to be aligned. And this is true. Look at all new employee contracts. We tell them you are on a 3 months probation. What does that mean? That means the company is ready to sacrifice 3 months for this employee to be up to date or up to skill by either the job requirements or the organization requirements. 3 months is such a long time, because on the other end, it will affect the productivity of this organization. It will affect the performance as well of this particular organization, especially if the employee who is getting onboarded or the employees that you have just lost was quite critical to organizational processes or very critical in terms of customer relations, employee relations. So 3 months, if you look at it, could be quite expensive to any particular organization. So let us continue. So this is my quote from Marcus Buckingham. People don't leave jobs, they leave bad bosses. So that goes to my last point here on the prospect of a more supportive boss. And look at it from this perspective. I have been in HR. I've worked in quite a number of organizations over the years. But if I move from company A to company B, that does not change what I do. Because by the end of the day, I'm doing HR. Whether at company A, company B, it's still HR. What I'm actually changing is the boss that I'm changing. I'm changing the organization culture. I'm changing the benefits from benefits of company A to company B. Maybe I'm getting more money in the process by moving from company A to company B. So whenever I think maybe I'll devise my own quotes over time, is like employees don't leave who they are or who they are as workers. They leave the conditions around their employment or the work that they will ideally do. So let's proceed. Next is Hasback's two-factor theory. Quite popular, especially if you've gone to college or if you've gone to university and you've done a business class. I doubt any business class could be called a business class if you don't do the Hasback two-factor theory. So what Hasback promotes in this particular theory is like there are also two sides of the coin. You know, we have motivators and then we have the hygiene factors. But when he was developing this particular theory about 1950s, thereabout, he started with the hygiene factors, because he thought if we can make the external factors of the job correct, then we are able to retain these employees at our organization. And did he know or not know that this actually is not what will ideally keep an employee in any particular job? So you'll see, and that's why he brought in the opposite of satisfaction is not dissatisfaction, because he thought if we do this, it will mean this. However, he quickly realized whether we do it or we don't do it will not make this employee be motivated. So he brought in the two factors, but the first one that he propagated, or the first one that he promoted initially was the hygiene factors. And these hygiene factors are extrinsic to mean they're outside the employee, and this could be the working conditions, where they work, how the work is done, and all those machinery that are put in place. Those are the working conditions. Then the other is the peer relationship, the relationship these employees have with their fellow employees. Then there's the issue of the leadership quality. And I know managers are almost put on spot whenever we talk about employee satisfaction. Then there's the issue of job security, which I feel like everyone wants to feel their jobs are secure. They're not threatened all the time, like we can fire you, or we can replace you, or we can get someone who's better than you to do this particular job. Then the next one is compensation. And it's almost very uncertain. Whenever we talk about retention, we almost always talk about compensation. You know, issues to do with salaries, their benefits, what more are we able to do to compensate our employees in terms of time, their skills, their expertise that they bring in these particular jobs. Then the last one is status. And until maybe like 6 months ago or thereabouts, I did not know how important status is to some people until I recruited a very senior level employee for one of our clients. But he declined the position because of the status or the job role that we gave him. And I kept going back to him and asking him, the money is right, the benefits are right, you are able to work from home, so you don't need to go to the office. What is the problem? And to my surprise, he told me, I'm just not comfortable reporting to someone who reports to the CEO. I'll prefer to report to the CEO. And for me, that caught me by quite a surprise, because I was like, it's a job by the end of the day. But he was like, no, where I'm coming from, I report to the CEO. So I feel like it's equally important if the organization you're recruiting me for, I also report to the CEO. So I was like, but that organization doesn't work like that. They have a whole different hierarchy or reporting structure. And by that, I lost a very good candidate. So you might think roles are not important to some people, but I think it's quite important. And you'll see, and that's why I've seen like roles are regenerating. Initially, we started with receptionists. Slowly, the customer receptionists. Then we moved to customer, what are they called? Receptionists. Then they're called customer care desk managers or something. Initially, we had customer service employees. Today, they're called customer experience. HRs, recently I saw like HRs were now called employee experience managers. Customer service managers are called happiness managers. But why is all this change in terms of roles? It's because people view roles as important. You know, it's not as much work as they do, but how they are related to these roles is quite important. So after the hygiene factor part of the Hasback factor theory was developed, but still Hasback felt like there's still more. Like, I think there's more we can still do for these employees, because they're doing their jobs, but they're not doing the best job they can do. because that's what hygiene factors do. It just meets the bare minimum. You know, people or employees are not able to go above and beyond what the job entails. So then he introduced the motivators part or factors as part of his theory. And when you talk about the motivators, they're the job satisfiers, and they're intrinsic. These are inherent, or they're within the employee. Well, hygiene factors are external. Motivators are internal. Yes, they're sorry, I think I'm confusing myself. As hygiene factors are external factors outside the employee or the person of the employee, but the motivators are internal factors. Like, what can we do to this employee that will come from within to help them do the best job they can be able to do? So one is responsibility, or the level of responsibility. How much work have you given them? How much autonomy have you given to these employees to be able to do their work? So I feel like whenever an employee feels they're more responsible or they're more in charge of the work that they do, then they get more satisfied in that job process. Then the next one is the job satisfaction. And I've had this more than enough times when people say, nashikilia tu hapa, when I'm looking for another job. What does that tell you? They're not satisfied in the jobs that they're doing. So that one you need to also consider. Are they happy with the job that they're doing, or is it just work that they are doing? Because if it's just work, then they are at hygiene level of satisfaction. Yet you need to get them to the motivators level of satisfaction. Then next is recognition. And I see a lot of many companies having a lot of effort put towards recognizing employees and their efforts. We have Employee of the Month, we have the Above and Beyond awards, we have so many, all these rewards or recognition are geared to make sure that these employees feel motivated internally or from within themselves. Then there's the sense of achievement. And I think this one happens a lot with the sales team or people who are working with targets. You know, if you put a target too high for them, that's not very achievable, then they're just doing the work. You know, they cannot be able to go above and beyond the job that they do. Then the next one is growth opportunities. And these growth opportunities, I know some organizations will say, we're not able to promote you, or we are not able to give you more roles, or we don't see whatever you're looking for in this, whatever you're looking for is not available in this organization. But yet we forget, like, the biggest parts, we can do more than just promoting someone. We can do job enrichment, like give them more additional roles. We can do job enlargement, just within the same role, but let them be able to do a little bit more, or even do job rotations, rotate them within different departments or different job sections, so that they feel like, I'm growing. I came in as an accounts clerk, but today I can do receivables. In a few months, I can do payables. It's still within the same role, and you're not going out of your way to promote them to be the head of accounting. So I think as HR managers and also as business leaders, we need to look, how are we able to present growth opportunities to our employees within the same function without really feeling the pressure that job growth only means going upwards, or growth that is upwards. And the next one, or the last part of the motivators factors, is advancement. And I think this is quite inherent to anyone. At any point you want to feel like you're advancing, you know, like you're moving to the next level, you're moving to the next stage. And sometimes this is where learning comes in, or training, because if you attend a training, you feel like, I am not living the training the same way that I joined this particular training. So that is the Hasback factor theory. Then, so how can organization prevent the turnover? So from my previous slide, we've really talked a lot around what is making employees want to leave. And then if we already or have already identified what makes them want to leave, then how can we prevent this turnover, or what can we do to prevent these employees from leaving our organization? One is spend a little more on compensation. And I know for HRs, we almost have a standard answer. We don't have the budget. But I think for organizations to be able to retain the best employees, I think it's time we get the budget to be able to retain them. And compensation, as I had earlier mentioned, compensation is not only about fixed pay. You can look at other ways you are able to compensate these employees. You know, even the flexi hours is still compensation, such that they can do something else outside their normal 8 to 5 kind of job. There could be benefits, but I know you'll still say, but benefits still cost us something, you know. But I feel like as organization, you have a better negotiation power when you're negotiating for a group than when an individual is negotiating for themselves for these benefits. Then the next one is open up career paths. Look at, and especially I see this whenever we do the skills matrix. So the skills matrix, on one end, we list down the names of all our employees that we have in organization. And on the other axis, we list down, these are the skills we need in these positions. Then once you do that, then you can come down to Purity. What skills do you check in this matrix? Then you go to what skills do you check in this matrix? Then by the end of the day, you'll see how the skills mix looks like in your organization. And that way you can decide, this is how we will open their career paths. Like, let Purity learn this particular skill, then they're able to fill this position, or they're able to take up more responsibilities around that particular position. So then is focus on flexibility. And I think I feel so bad for hoteliers, you know, the waiters, the waitresses, the drivers. They can't really have a lot of flexibility, you know, the fact that you can't serve people in your restaurant from your home. But look for ways, how else are we able to promote this flexibility? As much as they're working on premise, but when they're outside, or how much more time are we able to give them to allow this flexibility to, they can enjoy more. That will mean their job satisfaction is also high. Then the last one is be on the lookout of ineffective management. I already talked about this when we say people don't leave their jobs, they leave their managers. And this is true. And maybe whenever you have a bit of a high turnover, you need maybe to do the employee turnover rate. Ask yourself, which department, because you've done it on an organizational level, and maybe on organizational level, it's very good, it's 10%. So you're like, we are safe, we are within the recommended employee turnover rate. But if you are able to break it down to these specific departments, then you'll identify, maybe the accounting department, the turnover was at 25%. Then you go back to that department and ask, what is not happening in this department? Is it the people, the processes, the procedures, or is it the manager? And if it is the manager, then you need to make a decision. Because there's a quote that says, organizations are bigger than individuals. I've seen CEOs step down because the organization is bigger than them being the CEO. So if this organization will perform better by me not being the CEO, then I better step down. And the same applies to managers. If the managers are the problems in our departments, then I think it's high time for them to also step down. So then what are some of the benefits for employee retention? We've done so much. We've tried our best to retain these employees, to help them not to leave. We've invested both on the intrinsic and the extrinsic factors to just make sure that we have retained them. So when we retain them, what are some of the benefits? Are we able to experience or to have in our organization. So I have 10 of them. I had listed 10 of them. So the first one is cost reduction. And this one, I think I had already discussed the cost it takes to hire a new employee, or even just call it the cost it takes to lose a very good employee, the top talent in your organization. So these are some of the benefits. You get a drastic reduction in cost. Then the next one is morale improvement. Can you imagine an organization, maybe you are 100 of you, in a month, 10 people lose their jobs, either voluntary or involuntary. I think there'll be a whole panic going on in that organization, even before you explain why people are leaving, you know. So for the purpose of morale improvement, I think once you focus more on retaining employees, then the morale of the organization or the employees who work in the organization will go high. Then the next one is experienced employees. Because if, for example, if someone who has worked in an organization for 1 year, I think is much better off than the person who is reporting on Monday morning, you know, because the employee who is reporting on Monday morning has no idea what's happening in that organization, you know, has to be trained, has to be shown around, has to be handheld for almost 3 months, or even for some roles, I see the probation even goes to 6 months. That means you're losing on the experience for this time these employees getting trained. So you get the benefit of having more experienced employees in your organization. Then recruitment and training efficacy. Whatever you had intended to hire or to recruit, you are able to retain them. And the efforts that you're putting on training, you're able to see its benefits. Because I feel so bad, especially whenever we train a group of employees, then you go back 1 year later, you are told, we have a new set of managers. I'm like, but we trained 20 of them last year. What happened to them? Or they resigned, others opted to leave early, all these stories. So you see, even the cost of training, because training is a cost, and I'll tell you it's quite high. And also the cost of recruitment is quite high. But once you're able to retain these employees, then your training and recruitment efforts are able to make sense, because you are not able to always be evolving around a circle. Then the next one is increased productivity, because now people are working on one level. We're not worried who is going to lose their job. We're not worried who is coming in, then we need to train them. So if you're able to retain employees, then you're able to increase the productivity. Then the next one is better customer experience. And customers are everything. But in a few points from here, I also say employees are everything in an organization. Because customer experience today is becoming very key with a lot of organizations. Because it costs more to get a new customer than retain an existing customer. Ask any sales and marketing personnel. It's better for them to retain a customer than go out looking for one. Then that means then we need to invest a little bit more on our customer experience. Then the next one is improved culture. And culture is the way we do things in organization. And I really like it whenever I go to interacting with employees, they tell us, as we work this way, don't come and try to invent new ways of working. That should mean culture, that's how they relate to their culture. They're like, my manager, but he doesn't ask me when I come late. Or I'm like, no, you've already come late. So you see, there's an issue of culture. People are comfortable doing things the same old way. But once you have a very good culture, then it can only get better, because you don't need to start undoing or unlearning bad culture, so that you can learn and relearning all those. I feel like it's a lot of things, especially if you don't get the issue of culture correct from the word go. Then the next one is better employee experience. Now, this these two, employee experience and customer experience, they are almost quite similar or very close to each other, because the better experience your employees have in your organization, it automatically translates to better experience for your customers. So if you don't get treating your employees right, the same employees will go mistreating your employees. So, but if you have a better, to get a better employee experience, I think the retention also has to be able to play its part. Then the next one, which is the second last point, is increased revenue. And this one is related to the increased productivity, point number 5. Because once the productivity is on point, then we are able to see the effects or the impact of productivity to our organization. And that will include increased revenue. And when now we come back asking for higher salary raise, we have a justification. We are producing, or we are performing at the peak. Then that will translate to better revenues for organization. Then we can be able to afford the extra bonus for the year or the extra salary hike and all that. Then the last one is improved employee satisfaction. And this, we cannot put more emphasis on employee satisfaction. Your employees have to be satisfied to be able to perform at their best. And you'll see when I was talking about the Hasback 2-factor theory, when employees are performing at bare minimum, they're at hygiene level. But then you need to move them to the motivators level so that they go above and beyond. You know, I see Richard Branson says, work as if this is your company, you know, and the only way employees can work as if this is their company or the organization is when you are able to address their motivators factors. So let's move on to best practices. This is the second part of my presentation, also the last part of my presentation. I hope I'm within time, Brian. Okay, let's proceed. So the first one, what are some of the best practices, or what can we do to make sure we are able to retain our best talent in our organization? One is codify requirements for people managers. And people managers are the line managers, the heads of department, all these people that are leading these people, that they need to be aware they're dealing with people. You know, they're not dealing, regardless of the best technology you apply in your organization, regardless of the best softwares you want to introduce to manage people. If people are being managed by people, then the people who are managing people need to know that they're managing people. I know that's like she sells and all that, but that is the most important, that you need to know we are dealing with people. This is the human requirement, and that's why I started with the Hasback 2-factor theory. That, you know, if you do this, this is where their performance lies. But if you do something extra, then this is where we are able to push their performance. Then the next one is be proactive on communicating openings within the company. And I know within our companies, we have a lot of opportunities. Whether we call them promotions or we want to say we want to move in one department or another, I believe some people might be very happy just to change even their desk, where they sit and go and sit by the corner or sit by the window. So be more open to saying we have these potential roles in the pipeline, maybe in the next 6 months or in the next 1 year. This is the skills set that we want when these positions open up. This is what we will be looking out for. So be more proactive by letting people know we are growing as an organization. And when we grow, we want to grow with you as well. So also take your time to develop and grow yourself so that once these positions open up, then you're able to take you on board. Then the next one is analyze the turnover or attrition data in detail. Because there's power in numbers, and And I know HR previously we were not very comfortable doing numbers, but today it's almost inevitable that you can go to a meeting and you don't push out numbers, because you're like, when you say the turnover is high, that's an example I gave. I know the next question, the people in the panel or the people in the boardroom will ask you, what do you mean by it's high? By what percentage? Has it increased from the previous year, or has it increased from the previous period, be it quarterly, monthly, or has it reduced? And what efforts are you going to put into place to help us either reduce the employee turnover? And by putting these efforts, what is the impact? What will be the effect? By what percentage will the turnover reduce at? So take power. There's a lot of power in numbers. So let us not be afraid to translate all this information into numbers, and let the numbers inform us, because also numbers help us make more informed decisions. And what happens with numbers, they're factual. You can't really sugarcoat numbers. If it's 10%, it's 10%. Then you need to ask yourself, if today we are at 25% attrition rate or turnover rate, then what more can we do to bring this from 25 maybe to 10% or even 5%? It's almost impossible to get a near zero attrition rate. It's almost very inevitable. In a year, someone will want to leave, and they'll eventually leave, whether you want or you don't want, or regardless of how much effort you put at retaining them. But then we need to be able to bring it down to a number that is acceptable in our organization. Then the last bit is communicate, communicate, communicate. This one we cannot emphasize more than enough times. And this is also where we say there's power in information sharing. Other than sitting down in the boardrooms, in strategic meetings, making decisions for the people, why don't you invite them to help them make their own decisions? Because by the end of the day, and I think a lot of employees have our organizations at heart. If they succeed, they know they're also going to succeed at their personal level. If we fail, they also know this failure will also translate to their lives. So why don't we invite this one to be an open discussion? Let us all discuss, as much as we're discussing about the well-being of the organization, let us involve everyone in this discussion, because you might be surprised. Your biggest idea could be lying around with the receptionist of your office, or your biggest idea could be with the driver who is transporting goods left, right, and center. So let us be open to more communication within our organization, and wait for a new wake in organizations where everyone is involved, everyone feels they're part of the organization, everyone is able to own the decision, because other than saying it's them that came up with this decision. So let us just implement this decision, because if we are able to involve them in decision making, then they'll come and say, this is what we agreed, this is our decision. So lastly, I have a business case, the trade desk. So I'll read it out to you, and then I'll give you what they were able to come out of this particular situation. So Jeff Green, the CEO of the trade desk, sees time as the most valuable commodity we have as human beings. And when someone chooses to give their time to an employer, it is the ultimate compliment. As the trade desk grew and early stage employees began to hit 10-year milestones, Jeff realized that there wasn't an anniversary award program in place that authentically expressed to employees the level of gratitude he had for their time, energy, and dedication to the business. He needed a partner who could recognize employees in a meaningful way and that celebrated their diversity and personal interests. The trade desk found Blueboard in 2018, and a wonderful partnership was born. When the trade desk employees hit anniversary milestones, they get celebrated with a Blueboard reward from a wide menu of hand-curated experiences to enjoy with their loved ones, like hot air balloons, rides, poetry lessons, and adventurous camping trips. So this is an example of what organizations will ideally do. Because, for example, if you're a startup, your employee 001, and I think they just believed in your idea of like you're going to have a wonderful business or a great, they just believe in the idea. But quickly you realize the employee 001 started at day one. In another 12 months, they're already hitting 1 year anniversary. And you could be busy wondering, how did 1 year pass? But when you look at it critically, this employee actually gave their time, blood, and sweat, and everything in between to be able to make your 1 year successful. And this is the same even for existing companies. You know, even if your company is 100 years, this employee still has given a 1 year of their life to your organization and to be able to make it successful. So this is what Jeff Green did as one of the initiatives. So one is to scale your personalized and meaningful recognition efforts. Like for their case, they were like, 1 year has hit. What are we able to do for this employee? How are we able to show them that we know they spent 1 year in our organization? And I can imagine hot air balloon experience. It could be out of this world. You know, for me, I have fear of heights, so I can't even want to think about it. But for people who are, they want the adrenaline rush, I think that will be their first option to pick as a gift card for them. So, and by showing that it's important, Jeff showing that this employee is important, then I can imagine once you go for the ride, for example, and you have your wife, your husband, if it's the husband, you have the children and the wife, then we like, I really enjoy working at the trade desk, for example. Then the other initiative he showed is building connection and building a culture. Building connection and culture by celebrating cultures of champions. What does it mean? So you'll find that trade desk has, over time, has really invested a lot at employee recognition. Whether you pass your 1 year milestone, they recognize you. Whether you do something outstanding, they want to recognize that here, our culture is championship. So if you go above and beyond, they want to recognize that. And I think this could be an ideal example of where maybe we are failing as organizations. We've failed to sit back and ask ourselves, what has this employee done? How well have they shown up for the organization to be where it is today? So I think that is my presentation. I'm at the end of it. I welcome any questions if they are. I also hope you enjoyed and learned something from it. So back to you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Purity, for that informative discussion. I think you've done an excellent job on the delivery on the topic of discussion. I'll just go to some of the comments that are coming in. I'm seeing people are saying it's a very important training on coping with employment. Perfect topic. Thanks, Kim team, and also to the guest speaker. Good information and more of a personalized comment. This is a good presentation handled by an expert. Purity is using down-to-earth language for all audience levels. So I think the members have really appreciated the discussion that you have shared with them. It's very insightful. I'll field the first set of questions to you. I think there's one question that has come in from one of the members, and they're asking how important or critical are exit interviews, because most organizations never get the point. So I think maybe you can start with that as I compile the rest of the questions. You can respond to that question, and then I will give you more questions. All members, before she responds, members, please feel free, type in additional questions. Purity, the floor is yours to respond to that question.
All right, thank you so much, Brian. And exit interviews are as important as normal interviews when we want to hire anyone. But I know one of maybe the mistakes we make whenever we want to do exit interviews, we make it very, very personal. You know, you're like, why are you leaving? Where are you going? What are they giving you? Yet it should be a conversation to help us as an organization know where we are failing at our job, you know. Because for me, an exit interview, I'd like to know what worked or what did you enjoy when you're working here? What do you think we could have improved? Other than just turn the exit interview to almost to an attack, then it loses that meaning of why I even want to talk to the HR if I'm already on my way out. So I think let us make exit interviews like a conversation. Let us also make exit interviews because I also see this a lot in Kenya, and I don't know why it happened. When you leave an organization, the HR will never talk to you again. Your line manager will never talk to you again. Then I'm wondering, I've only left a job to go get better opportunities for myself and my family, and I'm not in the process of making enemies. So let us move from that mentality. If an employee leaves an organization, then it is final. It's not final. And I think that can only be communicated during the exit interview process, because they'll be like, and I know for one organization, one of the questions they asked, will you be willing to come back after a few years, or if wherever you're going doesn't work, will you be willing to come back? And I think that one leaves a very open door policy that says, even if I go to company B and it doesn't work, I'm always welcome to come back home. So exit interviews are very important, but I think the structure or the approach of it, if you don't get it right, it will not give you the results that you want. Because I think for me, I'll not be more than willing to tell you I'm moving to company B, because that's what I think a lot of people will be worried about. So let's get out from the pettiness of exit interviews and ask the real questions that you want to be addressed by someone who has been in your organization. They've seen your culture, they've seen how you operate, they know the people within the organization to help you even make a better choice, even maybe for the person that you're interviewing to replace for this particular role. David, Brian?
Thank you for that response. I'll give you the next set of questions. I think two first, and then you can respond to those two questions, and then I'll give you more. Okay. The second question is, under what circumstances should voluntary turnover be encouraged? And the third one is, at what point should employers differentiate between employee retention and employee detention? So I think
employee retention and employee what?
Detention, or a situation where, yes, where somebody is really held within the organization and they have an extended stay. So you'd find there's a, how long would you recommend? You know, you'd find we're moving away from a situation where you'd find somebody would join an employer straight out of college, and they would serve that employer from
20, 30 years on.
20, 30 years until they retire. I think we've moved from that. So I think you can clarify based on those two questions, then we'll move on.
All right. Thank you, Brian. I'll start with the first one, where voluntary turnover is encouraged. And whoever asked this question, I think they could be quite worried, especially with the top talent that wants to leave the organization. And the good or the bad side of voluntary turnover, as an employer, you don't have much control of it. You know, the best you can do is renegotiate with this employee, because the fact that it's called voluntary, it means I can leave when and as and when I want to leave, you know, and provided the right procedure has been followed, they've given the notice period, they've done the proper handover. So I want to assume if there's no issue of performance or anything, then for me it could be the voluntary, like I just want to leave, the organization. So that being said, I think voluntary it should be encouraged a lot, because also look at it from the litigation point of view. If an employee voluntarily leaves an organization, they don't have any case to present. Like, it means both parties have agreed on the separation amicably. So I think it should be really encouraged, other than just pushing for the involuntary turnover or involuntary separation, because by the time it's involuntary, someone will be disgruntled in that whole process. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of times the employees feel disgruntled. Either their efforts was not appreciated, their performance was not appreciated, and you'll see people would quickly want to move to court to settle down these grievances that they feel was not addressed at the separation process. Then the next one is employee retention versus employee detention. And I think with employee detention is it by choice or not by choice? Because recently we interacted with another organization that their employee tenure is about 20 years. And for me, it was a point of concern, because I'm like, these are the same people you started with about in the early 2000s. They're still the same people you still have working for you. Where is the innovation at? Where is the creativity at? Where is, if we introduce technology, are they able to keep up with the technology? So I feel like it has its own pros and cons, because look at it also on the other perspective. These old tenure employees or the detained employees, they know the company inside out. You know, they are almost the employees 001. So even when there's an issue, they tell you, you remember in 1990, we had a similar issue, and this is how we handled. These are the same people you don't want to lose, because if you lose them, then there is the issue of loss of knowledge. And you'll see whenever we talk about long tenure employees, then the next question I'll ask you, what are you doing to manage the knowledge? Like in the space of knowledge management, have you transferred this knowledge to someone else? Or has the knowledge this employee retained, has it been documented somewhere else? Because this is life, anything could happen. You can wake up one morning and the employee is no longer there. What will happen? And he or she was the library of your own organization. So employee retention is encouraged to some extent. The detention bit is also encouraged to some extent, but make sure whenever you are detaining an employee, make sure you're also doing the knowledge management for the knowledge this particular employee has. Brian?
Thank you for those responses. I will give you 2 more questions. The question is, how can employers adapt employee engagement to improve employee retention? And the next one is, what is considered a good period to work for one employer?
Just repeat the first question. Employee engagement to promote what?
To improve employee retention.
Oh, okay. Okay, I had the second one.
What is considered a good period to work for one employer?
Okay. To work for one employer. Okay.
Yes.
So we'll start. Sorry. Are you able to hear me, Brian?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Kindly proceed.
Okay. So what I was saying is, just hold on. Yes. So you see, with employee engagement initiatives, this one you have to be very intentional within your organization. And being intentional means you purpose to be able to engage these employees. you know, and you'll be surprised. Some employees don't want much. They just want, in the staff meeting, you say, Purity did a good job, let us clap for her. And they're more than happy that their efforts have been encouraged. And also, I think other ways is to look for employee engagement initiatives that are not very expensive or very capital intensive. For example, company employee of the month, for example. You just take a selfie, you go to the office, print that photo, put it on the door. It will not cost too much for that organization. So I think the more initiatives you have, but also if you remember, that's why I was talking about, you need to invite these employees to have a conversation. You need to ask them, how do you want us to engage you? Because it's only them that knows how best they want to be engaged. It could be, we don't want to work Saturday full day. Allow us to work until 1 p.m. so that you can take our children for swimming, and Saturday afternoon, the sun is still out. It's the little things, but I think this can only be achieved if and only we invite employees to these very important discussions. Then the next one is period to work. This is a catch-22 kind of situation, because ideally, my principle is, especially if you are young or you are new to your career, stick it out for 3 years. Because 3 years, it will mean when you're looking for your next job, because I know a lot of jobs will say, we need someone with 3 years of experience. So if you stack out your first job for 3 years, it means you can quickly move to your next job in the next 3 years or after the 3-year tenure. The more you grow in your career, you need to stick it out for quite a long time, maybe 5 years. So that is the next level of job. The next one, you might want to stick it out for another 10 years. By now, you're already at 20 years in the workplace. 20 years, the next job should be taking you to retirement. So ideally, I see a lot of people that I talk to, especially who are now approaching retirement. They've worked for about 4 jobs. And if you stagnate those years correctly, you'll find out you can actually work for 4 companies, because the first one, maybe you work for 3 years. The next one, you work for another 5 years. That's 8 years. The next one, because now you are at senior management level, you work for another 10 years. You're already at 18 years. At 18 years, the next job you have, if you quit and look for another job, I think there will be a problem there. So if it's a new job, or if you're just starting out your career, 3 years is a good time to stick it out. 5 years at most, because also the longer you stay in your first job, it reduces your probability of moving to the next job. So don't stay for too short of a time, but also don't stay for too long, to make sure that you're able to comfortably get your next job. Brian.
Thank you, Purity. I think members, we've received a lot of feedback and a lot of questions. I think it has been a very wonderful and insightful afternoon based on the discourse that has been shared by Purity Wanjiru. At this point, I would want to welcome and keep the suggestions in terms of the topics coming. I've seen one from Catherine in terms of employee relations, best practices in handling unionized staff. So I think this is a topic that we will endeavor to cover in great depth. At this point, I would invite Dr. Murithi Ndegwa to give us his closing remarks. Karibu Idi.
Thank you very much, Brian. Once again, thank you very much, all of you, for having logged in for this webinar. And we especially want to thank the first timers, those who came in for the first time. I was just scrolling through and I could see a lot of new names. I suspect most likely it's as a result of the topic or the speaker or both. We also want to appreciate those who logged in early. There are those we noted that they logged in as early as 2:45 p.m. Like we say, our topics, our webinars, we always start at 3 o'clock on the dot. And we, again, also want to appreciate those who have been with us since inception, since the year 2020. We are now doing more than 60 webinars since we started this series. And so those who've been with us throughout, I know there are quite a number of them. I may not mention all your names. Thank you very much. We also appreciate those who raise questions. There were lots of questions, and I think Brian has only sampled a few of the questions simply because of time, and we also want people to break off for Easter. So thank you very much, those who raise questions. As we all often say, if a speaker gives a good discourse and then there are no questions, then there is certainly a problem. But I think, Purity, you've seen from the series of questions that were posted, certainly the topic was quite engrossing, and also your presentation was also spot on. Brian and your team, we know there's a lot to do behind the scenes. We cannot thank you enough. I may not mention your names in all, but I know sourcing for speakers, having the dry runs, it's something that we do appreciate. And so thank you very much. Now to the speaker, Purity Wanjiru.
Yes.
Sample a few of the comments that we've seen. I've seen some people saying good work. Others are saying very insightful presentation. Others are saying excellent and insightful presentation. Others are saying great session, important and meaningful presentation, informative presentation, awesome presentation, wonderful presentation. I think there are so many verbs to describe your presentation. And what would we say as KIM? Thank you very much. Well done. You've actually done an excellent discourse on the topic. And we do believe that we are much more enriched now in terms of knowledge, in terms of tips and tidbits that we can use to improve our livelihood and also our workplaces. And so to Purity, thank you so much. There's one I'm seeing here, awesome presenter, very informative. That has just come after I read the other. So thank you so much. We've seen there's a number of people who are requesting that perhaps we have another discourse on a topic related to that. We'll see when we can slot it in, and be sure that certainly we are likely to call you soon. And if you do come knocking on your door, please open the doors and let us in terms of you coming to make the presentation. Purity, thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. Now to everyone, sorry, yes, please say.
I'm saying thank you to Brady and Brian also. And also Nancy is the one who connected me here. So when you know a person who knows a person, I think it's very important.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate. And Nancy, thank you for linking us up with the Purity. She's given us an excellent discourse. Thank you so much. Now to all of us, I want to, on behalf of KIM, to wish you a very happy and blessed Easter. We know Easter is just around the corner. It's actually beginning tomorrow. And we also need to take cognizance of the fact, the reasons for Easter. But even as we take cognizance of the reasons for Easter, you enjoy yourselves, have a blessed Easter. Please take care of yourselves and your families. And from all of us, we want to say good night and good evening, and enjoy your Easter and have a blessed Easter holiday. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.